what I had to deal with being in prison was the same officer that pressed charges on me was Officer Tedesco. He was able to come around me every day and antagonize me and say, Eisha, I see that your case growing a lot of publicity with the one you came in here on. He said, but it's okay. If you do get out on that one, you'll go down for mine, because 9 times out of 10, all cases that I put on with, if an officer put a charge on you and while you in prison, while you in jail, that 9 times out of 10, that charge is going to stick.
What's up, guys? Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the podcast. Before we start, this is a quick announcement to let you guys know that I'm dropping bonus episodes on Auxoro Premium. For less than $5 per month when you sign up for the year, you get a 2-hour bonus episode every month of my show, The Aux, that covers exciting and sometimes twisted topics like MK Ultra, the COVID lab leak hypothesis, Tim Dillon, Tom Cruise, the Tuskegee experiment, the obesity epidemic, and more. You also get monthly solo episodes with my takes on drugs, sex, money, creativity, mindfulness, and you have the ability to submit topic suggestions for both of my shows, The Aux and the Auxoro podcast. Expect 3 hours of new exclusive podcast content per month, including access to all archived episodes found nowhere else but Auxoro Premium. Visit auxoro.supercast.com to sign up today. This is the best deal in podcasting. 3 hours of exclusive podcast content to punch you in the motherfucking mouth every month for less than $5. No half-assed episodes here. Go to auxoro.supercast.com to join the premium gang today. What's going on, everyone? This time on the Auxoro podcast, welcome. I speak with the beautiful, smart, and talented Eisha Love. Eisha is a person with a very interesting story. She also happens to be a Black trans woman. And we start off the podcast by getting into her background experiences in Chicago, and then we get into about a 20-30 minute, actually even more than that. I think this section is about 45 minutes where we dive into an incident that Eisha was a part of, where she was verbally and physically attacked at a gas station in Chicago, and she responded. And this attack involved self-defense. It involved cars, it involved fists, it involved exchanging of, very strong and abusive language. And she reacted. She did what she had to do. And I don't agree with everything that she did, but I understand why she did it. And I don't know what it's like to be a Black trans woman in one of the toughest neighborhoods in America, probably one of the toughest neighborhoods on the planet. Which is, Southside Chicago. But she did what she felt she had to do, and I'll let her tell you about that incident in her own words on this episode. And I wanted to talk to her. I saw her profile on the ACLU YouTube page. There's a profile on her where she spent 4 years in prison. I believe it was 4 years in prison after this incident without a trial. And she had been through some rough shit in prison. She had gone through multiple public defenders, and I thought her story was very inspiring and interesting, and I wanted to have her on the podcast to talk about it. We get into what it's like to be a trans woman in prison. What is it like to take hormones to transition from male to female? She gives her thoughts on Caitlyn Jenner, Dave Chappelle's special. We get into the attack at the gas station, Eisha coming out as trans to her mom, and what it was like interacting with her family, and all these things that I do not know and will never know because they're not a part of my experience. And that's why I love recording podcasts. I love talking to people who have different experiences than me and trying to understand where they're coming from during the conversation, and then also thinking about it after, which I have for a lot. This conversation has stuck with me, and I enjoyed myself a lot. I hope you enjoy listening to this conversation because it was a lot of fun, some laughs, some darker stuff, and good times. And so without further ado, please enjoy this deep dive with Miss Eisha Love. Miss Eisha Love, thank you for joining me.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. So I came across you when I watched a profile on, I believe it was the channel Them and also ACLU. There were a couple profiles on you on YouTube. And as always, I was getting lost down the YouTube rabbit hole looking for guests and profiles and things like that. And I came across your story on ACLU. I think that was the first video that I saw. And before we get into the specifics of the incident that happened to you that kind of changed your life, because you it sounds like you've been through some shit. Like you've been through a lot of difficult things right off the bat. And I wanted to talk to you about the incident specifically, but also just because you're someone who has gotten through so much, and you seem like a very interesting person to talk to.
Well, yes, that's definitely how everything, what people will probably hear about me based off of my story. So, yeah.
So before we get into the specifics of that incident, what was it like growing up in Chicago? Because you grew up in Chicago, correct?
Yes, I was born and raised in Chicago. It was being the only child for a certain amount of years, maybe like 3 to 4 years. Growing up in Chicago, for me, it was slightly confusing in a sense because I was my mother's first child and I was a boy. So, mothers and their first child, I'm saying, and then being this boy, so boys, they are kind of sometimes they're protectors, they're saviors, as mothers look at them as sometimes. So, I guess kind of growing up, I'm saying, trying to figure out who I was feeling inside internally, I'm saying it was kind of a little difficult because I had to portray something as though I was something for my mother, but then I was living a life where I felt inside I wasn't living the truth. So it was really difficult, I would say. And just living in Chicago, I'm saying, alone, having to kind of feel different inside and knowing that others may not fully accept the way you may feel or being able to express it as well was kind of like, it was real difficult. I'm saying, and Chicago is very tough, city. So it's kind of somewhere where, sometimes things like this is not easy for people to kind of like cope with, and I think it's all around the world, but I just think in a sense where here it's a little bit more stricter where you have people looking up, turning their nose at you, feeling some type of way because of the lifestyle of the choices you choose to live. So yeah, it was really, really difficult, I'll say, I'm saying, but I made the best of it and I still held my head high.
Did it feel very tough when you were growing up? Because there's a lot of, and just, I mean, the city of Chicago generally, because I'm from Long Island, New York. So we grew up in different areas. I've been to Chicago. I've been to visit a few friends in more of the River North area. So definitely not the tougher places from Chicago. And you always hear about the violence and the crime and the murders and things coming out of Chicago whenever it's in the news. Did it feel kind of like that growing up, or did you not really realize it because you were a kid until later?
Well, I think the dynamic of things tend to change. Where I think it's always been high rate of crime in Chicago, but I think at that particular age when I was growing up, I really wasn't really paying that too much of attention because I was really focused on like what I was feeling differently inside that I wanted to express to the world. So I think I was really balancing and focusing on that more so. But I did kind of get a glimpse of it going into high school and somewhat of grammar school, maybe 8th, 7th grade. I'm saying I was kind of always teased, bullied, picked on, but the violence of that was totally different than what you're referring to. Like violence here is like, people getting killed constantly, just not knowing, I'm saying, who to speak with, cautious, should I say, not knowing, should be just more so cautious who to speak to, I'm saying, because sometimes people are just dealing with so many mental issues. So yeah, I would definitely say I really wasn't paying too much attention to it, but I knew the violence in Chicago had always been what it was, but I never like had to come across it because, like I said, I was living a life where I was somewhat confused of this kid that I was trying to figure out, well, what is it with me that makes me so different inside that I can't express it? And it was kind of hard for me to kind of express it to my family. So I was kind of like holding that in. Really, that was more so my main focus that.
Yeah. So you realize that, did you realize you were trans from a young age, or was it more that something was different? Like you sensed that something was different with the way that your mind and body came together, but you didn't actually know what was going to happen in the future? Or from a young age, did you go, okay, I'm transgender and this is how this is me? How were you kind of putting that together from a younger age in Chicago?
That's a good question. Good question. I think first I was confused where I felt as though that the appearance of how I looked it was kind of not me. So I had to switch it up a little bit. So what I did when I was in high school, well, going into high school, because that's like when the peak of the field was wanted to be embraced more on the outside than more so on the inside. So going into high school, I was kind of wearing like fitted jeans and like tight, shirts. Or so the kind of like, I guess, embrace, because I wouldn't say I was trans because I didn't know what trans was back then. So I'm going to specify, I didn't know what that mean. I just knew I felt a little weird inside. So I didn't know weird mean trans, weird mean this. I didn't know what the weirdness of that mean. But I was, I guess, gradually learning what the weirdness was as I was expressing it more within how my appearance were. So like I said, I was first started off with little fitted jeans going to school, and then like I started wearing like tight fitted, like the jackets. My jackets would be a little bit more fitted. So I was like a butch gay boy in a sense, I'll say.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it gradually grew as I started to run across other individuals that identify as trans.
Yeah, no, I can't imagine what it's like to have to deal with that extra layer of quote unquote weirdness, like having to figure out that extra thing that's going on. Because I remember feeling so awkward as a teenager and I knew that I was in the right body. I never felt like there was something that didn't align with my body. I've felt more awkward in the sense of, I want to, like, how am I supposed to open my mouth and talk to girls when I can't even raise my hand in class, or like all these awkward social interactions, and why don't t-shirts fit me the way that they're supposed to? Like, I was chubby, so I remember having like fat nipples and like wanting my t-shirt to like hang over a certain way, and it didn't. And having to deal with all those awkward insecurities of a teenager on its own is very frustrating and can be very troublesome for a lot of people. And it definitely was at times for me. So I can't imagine having that extra layer of going through that teenage awkwardness phase and then having to navigate your gender on top of it and feeling that you're not in the right body, or you were born as a man and you wanted to be in a woman's body.
Correct. So what I would say is it's trauma. Like, so basically all of that trauma that I had to endure at a young age, that's something I still deal with today, because that's something that I'm embracing with the world, which the world just don't understand, where I had to hold this in for so long that now I feel like I'm ready to express on what I've been holding in, and what the thoughts of how I want to appear to look, feeling on the inside, on the outside as well. So it was a little difficult, but yeah, I think I came around with just holding that in the back, with the stress of all the things I had to deal with just trying to figure that out. I kind of nipped that in the bud and threw it in the back of my brain. And I kind of like sat on it. Like, sometimes you go through situations, you just sit on it and you kind of like don't let it affect you. But it tends to always come back around full circle. So we'll get to the full circle as we continue though.
Yeah, for sure. It's like, there are things where, when you come across something that you want to change, it's hard to keep it in front of you. So you either have to say, I'm going to handle this right now. Or what I do a lot of times when I shouldn't is I, like you said, throw it in the back of my mind and don't deal with it for however many months or years. And then when I'm forced to finally deal with it, I do.
Well, I think that's what we do in general. I think society have these situations where the things that you go through as a child sometimes, like, is no mental awareness or mental help guidance is given to kind of like process that situation where whatever you went through in your childhood past, that you able to kind of like deal with it. So I never had an opportunity to kind of deal with the fact where I couldn't really live my authentic truth, where I had to kind of like play a certain way as a child that bothered me. I couldn't really be myself. And then living today, it's still hard where I'm now trying to do that in a sense where embracing it more on the outside, and I still have people in the world that criticize me. So it's like it's an ongoing thing that never leaves. It's just something that sticks around where you just have to deal with it. And sometimes dealing with it is not a good thing, because you may get, sometimes it may be good ways you can deal with it, and sometimes it be bad effects where learning how to deal with it, should I say.
Yeah. Did you feel like growing up in a tougher neighborhood in Chicago made it harder to eventually accept yourself as trans and come to that realization, and because of the toughness of the neighborhood and the way that people looked at being transgender, or did it not have an effect? Like, how did the whole culture of Chicago and the neighborhood that you grew up in, how did that have an effect on how you saw yourself? Good
question. I think first it started with my mother. Like I said before, it started with my mother, because I knew that was a person where all of the backlash where I was dealing with, she would have to deal with. So I felt as though the neighborhood where I was staying in, it was on the west side of Chicago, which is Austin area. So it was like pretty much a bad neighborhood. I'm saying, a lot of things tend to happen in the Austin area, the west side period in general. I'm from the west side of Chicago. So a lot of things tend to happen. I went to Crane High School. So Crane High School in 2004 was like the worst school ever. Like, it was lots of project buildings. I'm saying, like, the Wells was right there. So I went to school where it was like the toughness of the toughness. So I think I'll say, saying that in a sense, I think that kind of grew me to be the person I am and developed the toughness skin that I have. I'm saying, being who I am and expressing who I am a little bit more. The toughness of just what I had to endure. The school was growing up, coming outside every day and wearing those tight-fitted jeans and that little T-shirt and stuff. And people were like, well, that's not the typical way a black, men come outside. So what do you identify yourself as? So it was all of those things was like, so it's a lot that played in the sense of my strength that I'm able to kind of carry myself today in a way where I hold my head high everywhere I go. Like,
Yeah, no, that's I'm just trying to imagine what it would be like, because I grew up, it was much more suburban. I grew up in Plainview, Long Island, so it's like the most whitest Jewish town that you could imagine, and very, like, no crime. Crime was like what you would see on TV shows, and there was, if someone got robbed 3 towns over, that would make the news in my town, because it happened so rarely that it would go around so quickly, and it was never in the forefront of my mind growing up, because I just wasn't seeing it. And so it sounds like you had a situation where you were growing up in a place that was much more prevalent in danger, and you kind of adapted to that. That toughness became a part of you that you could later on use to tackle the problems in your own life. And a lot of people don't make it out of that. A lot of people will succumb to the crimes, or they will, they won't realize the ways that, maybe they were doing bad shit and everyone else around them was also doing it too. So they never really had any role models. I never really had an excuse, because I had good role models in my life. And so if I fucked up, I couldn't blame anyone else. But if you see violence and crime and all this shit happening around you, it can be hard to get yourself out of that, I imagine.
Well, I wouldn't say the violence and crime. I would say the violence and crime wasn't really the impact growing up for me. I think the lifestyle as being a black trans woman and really trying to discover who I wanted to be, and like the discover aspect was really the toughness, what made me who I am today and put this tough layer of skin on me, is because I had to endure a lot of things where growing up, once I started to transition to finding out of like where's like the boys town, like Chicago has like a boys town, and I went to that area when I was a young age, being as though when I was young, and I was a gay boy once upon a time. I kind of seen a trans girl and she was amazing. I was like, oh my God, she looked beautiful. So it was at that particular point where that's when my transition started. But within the transition of that, the impact started then, because that was the point where I had to now inform my mother, where she seen me as being appeared to be looking one way, so now she had to adjust for another look, where that was something that she wasn't really prepared for. Sometimes mothers not really prepared to understand. That's why I think this is a good opportunity now to share more and have Black trans women sharing their stories, so mothers can get a better understanding where this can be my child that is impacted by the situation, where they kind of feeling a certain type of way of of differentness, and I don't know how to go about handling it. And that's what it was for my mother. Like, she didn't know about handling the situation, so I had to go to the streets, and the streets handled me in a rough, tough, buff. And at that particular point, I had to kind of like deal with the fact where, okay, I still have to stand strong, because I don't have nobody out in the field to understand me at this particular point. Well, I have to get out here and just do it on my own.
What's up, guys? This is a quick break in the episode to remind you that if you like this conversation, you'll love Auxoro Premium. Go to auxoro.supercast.com to gain access to bonus episodes, the ability to suggest topics, and all premium archives for less than $5 per month. This is the best deal in premium podcasting, motherfucker. Go to auxoro.supercast.com for 3 hours of exclusive podcast content per month. We are allergic to half-assed episodes. Go to auxoro.supercast.com today. How did your mom react when you told her about being trans? Did you said you turned to the streets. Is that because she wasn't accepting at first, or did she really not understand it? Like, what happened when you had those early conversations with your mom?
She really wasn't understanding. The first part where the whole appearance was staying the same, meaning that I still see my child as who I had my child as, but with things that my child wear may not be something I would want to see my child in. So it was that point where she was okay with it. But then the point where she was like, okay, I'm now seeing you in the area where we live, that people are going to see you come outside in women's clothing, makeup, and, of course I was doing things to survive. So, I didn't have a mother that was wealthy and had lots and lots of money to provide for us. So, and then things that I wanted, she probably wouldn't be willing to want to go buy, because I wanted now girl bras and I wanted a cute shirt, so it was certain things I knew now I had to get it on my own. And doing those things what led me to transition. And when I started the transition part, that was the part where it was kind of impacting for her to kind of deal with. So it was like, it went really deep, I'm gonna say. And that deepness is what like I really want to like kind of like express to like, a little bit more. I want people to kind of follow the story more, I'm saying, because there's more to my story. The story really with my life is really, really deep. Like, from when I say what I mean by that is that I had to move. My daddy ended up moving me, and I ended up living with my godmother and a lot of other things, like, and I had a godmother that was accepting of the situation. I think my mother tended to look at that and was like, that's my child. I should be accepting of who I pushed out and not allow someone else to accept my child for what they is. And I didn't do it first. So it was like, I think a moment where my mother reflected, where did I do the right or wrong thing to not really accept my child at that moment? So, I had like a instant, what they call those, an epiphany. Like, like, I'm seeing you now living with your godmother and now living with her, the experience of her accepting you fully. And, that was something my mother kind of like took on head on. I liked it, the fact that I had a mother that was understanding to like, maybe it's me. Maybe I should have accepted my child first and not allow someone outside to accept my child. So you moved in with your godmother, and your godmother was really the one that the adult figure in your life that accepted you as you were, and you were wearing girls' clothing, and you were going out dressed differently than other guys, especially in that neighborhood. I imagine being in a tougher neighborhood too, you could be at risk walking around in girls' clothing as a guy. I imagine that's very scary. Well, yeah, then I had moved, let's say that too. I had moved from the west side to the south side. So I kind of like changed the environment too. So the south side at that particular time was a more rougher neighborhood as well. So I was like on the south side, southeast side to be exact. So it was really rough there too. So living with her, the comfortability of who I became more to accept was growing more on me, I'm saying, as being this person that understand what the lifestyle as a trans woman, what we had to go through. And it was the coming to grips with everything for me. I was coming to grips with everything at the house living with my godmother.
Yeah, the South Side it's the area that a lot of gangster rappers say that they're from and lie about it because they want to seem hard, and then only a few people are actually from the South Side. That's like, you hear that constantly, like South Side Chicago, South Side. It's almost like a myth to someone who doesn't live there, like myself, because you hear it so often, but I've never actually been in Southside Chicago or lived there.
Well, if those who watch the news often, I'm saying, they'll see certain areas always signify the south side, the west side. Those are most the common areas of where crime rates are actually going on more so. So if those who are really into, world news, so they'll see like where usually crime things like that tend to happen.
Yeah, and you mentioned that you have a deep story, and it sounds like a lot of that story changed on the morning of March 28th, 2012. That was a pivotal moment in the story of you. And so for people who may not be familiar or may have not seen the profile on ACLU or them, I'll link both of those in the description as well. But from moving in with your godmother up until the morning of March 28th, 2012, what happened leading up to that incident? Before we get into it, like, what was going on in your life? What were you doing? Were you in school? Were you not in school? Like, what was kind of the vibe of Eisha Love at the time?
Well, Eisha Love was a striving Black trans woman trying to make ends meet. And by that, others really don't really know the backhand of the story. Others just know what was she say, he say, said, that this individual that I ran across, which I was outside, doing things where a lot of trans girls tend to have to run to, because we not actually getting opportunities to kind of like go and work a 9 to 5. Like, I couldn't work a 9 to 5 back in 2012. Being a Black trans woman back then, people was looking at me and laughing at me, even in school. I dropped out of school just because of this situation. My own teacher was picking with me. But anyways.
How old were you at the time in 2012?
2012, I was 23 or 24. 23 or 24.
Okay.
But at that time, 23, 24, like, in being a trans woman and dressing up like that was a pivotal moment where a lot of people really wasn't understanding to that, and they wasn't accepting to it. That's what led to the story of what we're referring to now with the ACLU, what actually caused all of the
yeah. So how would you define what it is, what you were doing at the time? Would you say sex work, or what was kind of, how would you define that? Ja.
Because the labelness of thing, I would just say surviving work. I was surviving. I was trying to be the girl that survive and just make sure if things that I wanted, I was able to get. So I was surviving. That's like what I'm doing today, surviving, like we all do. Doing this podcast, we're trying to survive. Like, we're doing this thing.
Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Right. So I want to look at it that, because I think the label behind it makes people kind of criticize, like, oh my God, she's doing. Well, no, I'm surviving. I'm trying to make ends meet. Like, that's what I don't think I knew best. That's one of the things where society would accept me. These men would actually help me. Yeah, I had to give some to get some, but at the same time, it was it was for me that's why I felt comfortable to go where I knew that the comfortability wasn't going to be looked at. I was going to be judged. And that's the thing about it. I'm saying in the work field, you was judged and people looked at you a certain way where, oh my God, we can't look at you. I can't hire you. You're going to be a disgrace, a bad image to my business. And that's not, and in today's time it's different, but.
So it was work of a sexual nature, but you would define it as survival work because of the stigma. It's like redefined.
Basically.
Okay. So you were out working when this incident happened, or what was that day like, the morning of March 28th?
Okay. Don't cut me. I'm gonna break it down to you. Okay.
Yeah.
My mother's birthday is March the 29th. My birthday is April the 10th. Me and my mother are Aries. We're both Aries. So March the 29th was my mother's birthday. So what I was actually doing was, what others don't know, so this actually a bombshell for others to be like, oh my God, I didn't even know this was even actually going on. But at that particular time, I was actually striving to make more money because I was trying to surprise my mother with some gifts. I'd already had bought some edible arrangements. I was going to actually go and buy her some clothes. I'm saying, like, it was going to be some other little add-ons of things which I was going to do at that particular moment. But I was outside. It was early morning. It was like, 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning. And I was just wrapping it up, I'm saying, from the early morning of being out doing whatever I was doing. And there's a particular black man that was out, doing whatever he was doing, as far as, I think, selling drugs. I can't really know because that wasn't my business or what he was doing, because I really wasn't concerned. But he was out doing what he was doing, and he came into the store. I was actually outside with one of the girls that actually died. Her name is Tiffany Goodman. She was one of the trans girls that actually died in the situation of my story. And rest in peace. She was with me that day. And we was actually sitting inside of the gas station called Sitco, which is no longer even called Sitco anymore. The gas station is there, but it's no longer called Sitco anymore. And we was sitting in, like, it's an area, I don't know if those who know how the gas station label is, where you have, sometimes the gas station have where you pump and you just pay and leave, and you have an area where you can go in and get beverages and things like that. So we was in a part where it was like you can pump and leave. So it was like you can stand around right there. So we was just standing around, doing us, waiting on, whatever to come for us. And this particular young man walked in, and my friend was like, oh, I know him. He's from my area. And, from that point on, he was like, oh my God, y'all better not be looking at me. I ain't with all that. Ooh. So at that particular moment, and at that time in 2011, a lot of guys wasn't accepting to you looking at them. Like, if you looked at them, that was the point where they felt like you was actually coming on to them, or you was throwing yourself onto them. And it wasn't that. It was just like, I was looking and like, okay, he could have been just a handsome man, or just looking because I probably known him. But it was another way the approach of how he took it. He was like, yeah, and it just went on of just aggression.
It's like when a gay guy hits on a straight dude, or when a gay guy just talks to a straight dude, and the straight dude's like, dude, what are you doing? I'm not gay. And he was just talking. Like, he wasn't trying to
hit on you. I'm just having a conversation with you.
Yeah.
So it's in the same concept of that, but it was more so in, like, don't look my way, or you make me or you're trying to hit on me. And I was like, okay, anyways, I tried to ignore the situation, but it escalated, I'm saying. So he bought his beverages and things like that. And as he was leaving out of the gas station from where we were standing at on out into the pump area, he mentioned, like, yeah, these motherfuckers out here looking at me and woo, woo, woo. And mind you, we knowing he referring to us because the doors, people coming in early in the morning, buying gas, getting coffee, leaving out. It was a lot of action. So he was causing more of a scene. And for me, I'm a type of girl where I feel like I avoid things. I'm a very big avoider. Like, I like to avoid all type of situations. Like, you don't see me in the public media stream, like, often like trying to be something I'm not. I'm just a normal person willing to share my story and hopefully uplift other individuals that's impacted by my situation and maybe can learn what to do and what not to do differently. But anyways, that was my whole thing. Like, I didn't really want to go back and forth with him or whatever, I'm saying. So I tried to avoid the whole situation. But he was causing to make a bigger of a scene where people coming in and out, they point at us at the pump. Like I said, he maybe was out selling drugs, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, he was just making a bigger scene. And I was like, you know what, Tiffany? I'm finna leave because he messing up what I got going on up here. And I can't get what I got to get because he's causing a scene. So at that particular moment, I'm like, okay, let me just leave. Because I had my own car or whatever. So I'm like, let me leave. So as we was leaving, because if people catch y'all out here again, they going to kill your ass. And at that particular moment, like, we're referring back to what we said. Sometimes you done been through so much in life that the things that you've been through sometimes, and you going through the same situations, similarities, because they all are some similar situations where the impact of the trauma that you've been through previously tend to come back another thing as trauma. Like that was trauma for me because I wasn't doing anything to this young man. The only thing I did, like I said before, was looking at him. And my intentions of looking at him was not to say I want you to do something with me or you have anything for me. It was just a look. But I guess he may have known her. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But like I said,
your friend that you were with.
Yes. But I don't know that. I'm just like, you're messing up what I got going on. So I was upset. Mm-hmm. So like I said, we was getting ready to leave out. And as me and her leaving, he was like, yeah, because a person catch y'all out here again, they go, whoa, whoa. At that particular moment, I had a rage that built up because I felt like I shouldn't have to leave whatever I had to do because you're ignorant and you feeling like a person looking at you causes you to feel like you being, I guess, when people try to hit on you, seduced.
Seduced, yeah.
I wasn't seduced. It just made me feel like I had a moment where I reflected back of just so much anger of rush that flew to me because I just was over the fact of, like I said, growing up in school, in high school, being picked with, teased with, always having this moment where I'm always the target. I just rage. I went out of rage. And the rage come from him running up to hit me. He struck me first. Yeah, I had some words of once he said what he said of, if y'all do leave, someone gonna kill y'all if I see y'all again and all that. That moment for me was a threat. You don't threat a person telling them what you're gonna do to them. I'm saying at that particular moment, if anybody liable with threats, I don't take threats willingly. At that particular moment, you're going to have to do what you're going to do at this particular moment because I don't want you to catch me in and then you do that to me. Then I wasn't expecting what was coming. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's how everything began.
So just to recap, so you were at the gas station. It was one of those gas stations where you could hang around. It had the snack area. People could go in. And so this guy was assuming that just because you looked at him, you were trying to hit on him or something, or you were trying to seduce him, and maybe he felt insecure, and so he was lashing out at you, and he said something like, if you come back here, like y'all gonna get killed or something like that, or he was threatening you basically, and then he hit you first, like he made a move and hit you, and what happened after that? Like how did that tussle evolve? Like what was the back and forth?
But yes, we're citing back. So as we was leaving the gas station, like I told her, because like I said, it's a pump area. And if you Google, you will see the layout of the gas station. So people will be able to get a better visual of what I'm referring to. It's a pump area and it's a part where you go and grab beverages and things like that, snacks, chips and things like that. But as we was leaving, like I said, he ended up saying something to us as we're leaving. So at that particular moment, I felt like he was antagonized, like he was, like picking with us. Like it was, but this is something that's been going on for years. Like we're always the target of the pick. Like we always we pick. We always are the pick to be picked with. So at that particular moment, I just was over the fact that I'm not going to consistently be the point where someone is going to constantly pick with me. So I said some things verbal, like, yeah, you got me fucked up, woo, woo, woo. And at that particular moment, I think that the things of what I said kind of made him feel a certain type of way where I'm being told these type of way from a person like you. Oh, hell no, let me beat your ass. So he ran up on me and he stole off me. And from that point, that's how everything transpired. He hit me in my face. My friend, she was sitting on the side of me saying, oh my God, help her, woo, woo. And there was another older man out there, I guess, with him as well that was doing whatever they was doing for us, selling drugs or... Because like that's a known area where... Madison and Kilbourne was a known area where drugs were always being sold. So a lot of crackheads, prostitutes, and things like that was always around. So of course, they may was out selling drugs, but I don't know. But yeah, they both attacked me while she stood around. She was calling the police to help me and things like that. But that never actually happened for the police to come in, secure to help me. So yeah, that's how the situation of the gas station aspect started.
So he attacked you first, and then a combination of having people talk shit at you for however many years, plus the act of self-defense, you said some things back and defended yourself like anyone should in that situation, or else worse things can happen. And then how did things escalate after that? I remember hearing something about a car and them chasing you and stuff like that? What was the next thing that happened after the gas station?
So after the gas station, rustle and tussle, I did flee the scene. But at that particular moment of leaving the scene, they had some of the guys that had already been aware of us rustling and tussling in the gas station had already informed everybody. I don't know if people are aware of the alley call where people be like, oh man, what I mean by the alley call is that sometimes black people inform people like such and things so loudly and that others hear that now everybody know. So it was like,
yeah,
it was
they're
a
like
form of
announcing that
awareness
something
quick.
is going down.
Right.
Like,
It was a form
something's about to go down.
Basic, a form of awareness quick. So people was aware of what happened immediately. So as I got in my car and as I was driving, I don't know if I was to see these individuals on the side of me, but I was so angry that I did. Like I said, I have the option to now speak more into what actually transpired, but I will leave that to kind of say in the sense of this. I was in the angry mode where I did get in my car, and when I seen the young man, I did attempt to physically run him over out of anger because of how I felt. And that particular moment where Tiffany was in the car with me as well, she kind of like woke me up to like, Eisha, no, you're gonna like kill him. You know, you have to stop. You're gonna kill him. So I think, to be honestly, and speaking on this more now, because I do have an option to speak more on it now, because my lawyer actually said, Eisha, now you can actually speak on your truth on what actually really happened. A lot of, like, for me, I was in an angry, like, really rage moment. And I think sometimes we get to these moments where the rage of how you feel tends to not allow you to to think on your reaction of things that you're going to do. And at that particular moment, I didn't think like at that moment, all I felt like was I'm being picked and teased with and constantly. And it was just this particular person had something to do with this. And I want now my revenge. And so, yeah, that's the situation. I got in my car and I basically seen him coming down the street and tried to strike him.
Yeah, that's it's a fucked up situation to be in. And I imagine, you know, having people say things to you over the years and do things to you over the years that are, you know, either physically assaulting or verbally assaulting, kind of like just, even if it's just talking shit, that stuff builds up and for years and years and years. And it's tough to hold that in at all times. And it's tough to act in the angelic way. Like you can only let people get by for so long before someone, you know, hits you back and snaps. And it sounds like that's kind of what happened with the car aspect of it, because you were in the car, so you didn't have to go after him with the car and try to run him over. But in your mind, you were seeing such rage that you weren't really thinking at the time, and you kind of just like you went for it. Is that kind of what was going through your mind?
It was a lot of rage. Like for me, I think people will never understand rage, but I think sometimes people can kind of coexist with rage, where you can like be impacted by something so much where you lose who you are at that moment of reaction, the reaction of what to do and what not to do. Like, and that's really what it was. It was like I didn't react the way as of Eisha today, and Eisha was able to go back maybe, I probably wouldn't act in a way of that, but I had to make a statement where if situations like this constantly go on, where we're picked with, who's going to stand up and make a moment where it's a moment where people understand where maybe he deserved this, or maybe she didn't do anything that he didn't deserve. Like, that's what I was looking for people, but people were saying, well, oh, this is what you should have did, and that, but I never did anything literally to like mess with this man at all. Like literally, like I said, I was out doing whatever I had doing, what was doing, and this situation all occurred with him messing with me. So I really want people to understand and sympathize with me, but I know sometimes in situations like this where when you're doing things where people look about, oh, you're trans and you're trying to now go run him over and kill him or something like that, the tensions behind is this anger and rage and not dealing with the mental issues where at a young age, where when you get to an age where you can't control them anymore and you lash out and do the things of what I've done, then you have to now reflect back on that moment to now maybe say, was I wrong? Was I right? I don't know. I just say that this situation was an impacting situation where now now that people can understand what maybe in the sense of the wrongdoing of him caused that to happen, so I want people to kind of like look at the situations in multiple ways where, not just judge it based off where, oh my God, well, you had opportunities to flee. Well, what if I went back up there again? I could have been in like the statistics of trans women where Black trans women where they die and then now no one never know he killed me, so I was really trying to make a moment where I'm not going to tolerate this. Like, I'm not going to continue to keep dealing with being teased, picked with, and I'm not doing anything harmful towards you. So that's what, for me, if anything I want to say, that was a moment for me to understand, well, I'm not going to continue to keep tolerating this type of things. I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm trying to relate it back to something in my own life because I've never been in a situation as severe and as life-threatening as that in the context of someone trying to harm me. What it makes me think about though is in high school there were a bunch of times where I felt like people were calling me names and picking on me. Like, I have a Jewish dad, but I went to a Catholic high school. And so a lot of people made fun of me because I was half Jewish and I had a Jewish dad. And I never really thought about being Jewish until I went to a Catholic school, which is ironic. And I didn't really care about the insults at first. And then over years of people saying like, oh, gross Jew, or because my last name was Grossfeld, so they'd be like gross Jew or things like that. Like, each individual hit was not fatal, but over time I got to the point where one comment caused me to crack, and I ended up like shoving this kid super hard on the bus and then eventually punching back and forth, and I got my ass kicked because he was much bigger than me at the time. But after that, that individual never messed with me again because I had shoved him hard into a window. And there was that moment where you kind of saw the look in his eyes like, oh shit, like he actually hit me this time. And that action of pushing back hard caused him to let up immediately. We got in a fight, separated, nothing bad happened, like no broken bones, anything like that, just a couple bruises. And then after that, we were fine. And so I don't know exactly what it's like to go through the situation you've been through, but I understand the feeling of wanting to deliver that hit so that people don't fuck with you anymore. And it builds up over time, and it can be a singular action. Like, when people are reading your story and they don't know the context of it, they may see the one action of this guy shoving you and hitting you in the gas station, and then you trying to run him over with your car and say the action of this guy doesn't equal the action of this car. But in your mind, you're also dealing with all of the insults and abuse and things that it sounds like people have been giving you from a very young age. So not that it excuses people's actions, but you can understand where people come from when you have the context. And it sounds like this guy was an asshole anyway. So what happened to him? Like, what was the result of this altercation? Like, how did it eventually progress where the event that day came to an end?
Well, I'm leaving like a lot of misses and blishes in the mist. So hopefully, I'm saying we'll get a book. I'm saying, like, I've been trying to get the situation with this book memoir out. Yeah. I'm saying, just to get people more into just the whole dynamic of the full understanding. But the situation from that happening, from me hitting him or whatever with the car, me and Tiffany fled at the scene because I was scared because another car behind me of a bunch of young men. I'm saying, another thing, like I said, I didn't know what was going to happen in the midst of it after the fight, because like I said, everybody was already aware of us fighting. I'm saying, it was like, I don't know if he told like a lot of the gang boys that be out there selling drugs with him or whatever, I'm saying, to kind of back him up. I don't know. But as I hit him with the car, a car came behind me with a bunch of guys that was in the car that actually, from me hitting him, went to go make sure he was okay first. But once they went to go do that, I was the last person in the car. Tiffany had already got the car and ran. So she was already gone. I was the only one in the car. So it was one man that seen me on my way leaving out the car, I'm saying, from striking him, and like, go get that faggot. Like, and me and him was on the chase. Like, he was chasing me. Like, they was really trying to harm me at that particular moment. Like, if I wouldn't have ran, who knows if I wouldn't be able to tell this story right now. So it's more than just a story. It's the survivor behind the story that's able to tell a story. Like, it's more than the story. So if we looking at the story of the situation, many trans women go through these same situations where they're not messing with anybody, they're not harming no one, but they're the target. So it's the same situation in the sense of me. I was a target where I defended myself, and I went about defending myself maybe in ways where others may be like, oh my God, that was a little bit too much. You literally could have killed him. But girls are being killed consistently. Like, you know, every year we have 10 to 15 girls, I'm saying, you seeing constantly dying, I'm saying. So getting back to my situation where, yeah, the young man chased me down the street. I actually found somewhere to hide. I had my phone with me, and I ended up calling my mom. I called my mom. She panicked immediately. She was like, oh my God, what happened? Where are you? Where are you? And I was like, Mom, these boys trying to kill me. I don't know. Like, I'm just sitting in the corner of someone's house. I'm saying, like I was in the basement of someone's house. So I was hiding because I didn't know if they caught me. Who knows? Like, I don't know what could have actually transpired right now, you know? So it's just at that moment I panicked. My mama panicked. She ended up finding out where I was at. I'm saying the police car was sitting up there at the scene, and we end up driving back to the scene or whatever. And the officer, mama ended up getting out the car, talked to the officer. The officer said whoever's in the car just need to turn themselves in. And obviously, at that particular moment, me, my mom, my stepdaddy, and my little brother was in the car, and we drove. My mom was like, what happened? I'm explaining to my mama, like, Ma, I didn't do anything to this boy. This is all what happened. She was like, okay, we're going to go to the doctor. We're going to go to, I said the doctor. We're going to go to the police station and just inform the police what all transpired. And when I did that, walking into the police station alone, they was like, okay, well, we know about the incident that occurred. Well, who was the individual that was in the car? And my mom was like, well, my child. And at that particular moment, like they said, they read me my rights. They took me to the back and they said, well, your child we compensating your child for the moment to figure out all what transpired because it was a situation that occurred. My mama sat outside waiting. And at that particular moment, like now dealing with the police, this a whole nother barrier, but that's how the situation escalated from that point.
Yeah, so you basically you called your mom, or your mom called you, and then you called your mom. Sorry.
I called my mom. Like I said, the guy was chasing me, and I actually hid behind someone else's house, behind the house. I cut through the grass real quick as I was running, and hid behind the house. I'm saying, I don't know if he probably thought I'm saying I was probably running down the alley still or whatever. I don't know, but I kind of was running and hid behind somebody's house, and I put out my phone, called my mom, panicking. And she actually came in like to a corner where I was like hiding it and got me in the car, and I jumped in the back seat real quick because the cars, the boys was probably just riding around looking for me. So I hopped in the car quick.
And so what led up to the police actually charging you? Because I remember reading that the first charge was assault, and then it got escalated to attempted murder. What happened? Were you being held and questioned? Were you allowed to go home? What happened while the police were deciding to charge you with something? How long did that process take?
Well, I want to classify like the process take was for me was very uncomfortable. I'm saying like I was already coming out of an uncomfortable situation where these guys was trying to harm me in a way where I felt like, yeah, I may have went to the extreme, but who knows if I wouldn't have done that the next day of me being outside, I could have been killed or I wouldn't have been here or not. So again, once I turned myself in and I was being questioned about the situation or what occurred, at that particular moment, like a lot of officers going to the scene, they was finding out what was going on. It was just like another word of mouth of everyone else, like, oh my God. And now they're developing the story. So now they figuring out my name, and my name was Eisha Love. And now they know me as, Eisha Love. And now that's a trans. Oh, okay. and this a black man. Okay, so wait a minute. And she was outside in an area that's known for this, that, and the third. So it was like all these concepts of officers coming in. Oh my God, so were you guys together? We're just trying to develop the story. We're just trying to figure out everything that's going on. Like, we're not really quite sure. We're just trying to just ask questions because you did turn yourself in and everything. And I was like, well, no, and obviously I said the story to many other officers and saying once they took me in the back, you know, I had to inform what happened. You know, they asked me. So as I'm explaining this to other officers coming back, I'm saying from the scene, figuring out what happened, it just coming with the concepts of things. What I'm trying to say is that they was coming to me like I was a joke. Like, oh, was you guys together? Did you give him HIV? Did you try to date him and he didn't want you? Like, it was so many different concepts where I'm just explaining to him, no, like this man was just harming me because of my lifestyle. And I just went to the extreme with maybe what y'all see, but it was none of that. So being in prison.
So the officers were assuming there was some kind of relationship going on between you two, or they were poking fun at you being...
It was all different types of scenarios that was being brought up where it was a joking matter. It wasn't taken serious, you know. So getting to the point of what you're asking within the question of how did the discovery come from an assault to a first degree attempt is because they had to grasp up everything on behalf of my side and his side. So it had to take a time once he got hit with the car, his leg was... I don't know exactly what was going on, what was wrong with his leg, but they had discovered after like maybe a month or two, because it was an assault at first. But once they seen that the car had injured his leg, then I think the attempt went up when I think my lawyer told me that his leg needed to be amputated or something, because I think first from him going through surgery, I think they had told him to stop drinking and, like, you know, take your medication and your leg will heal up properly. But I guess that the lack of what I was informed by my lawyer, which is Dan Coyne, he had informed me that Eisha, well, now we're getting that his leg would need to be amputated because of the lack of him not taking good care of his leg. But being as though he's not taking good care of, they're going to use that against you because you hit him with a car. So now your charge is going to go from an assault to a first degree attempt because now it's an attempt that you almost... So it was like the attempt actually aspect went up because his leg was now injured where he was going to get it removed.
Yeah, that's weird how they would change the charge based on what happened to his leg, because that doesn't change what happened that day at all, just because his leg went from one state to another. And it sounds like, so he was injured, his leg was injured from the car, and
it wasn't that severe.
The doctors told him that if you
do physical therapy and take your medications, your leg will heal up, and he was neglecting it somehow and ended up losing the leg partially from the car, but also partially from the fault of himself from not taking care of it.
Yes, that's what I had gotten back from my lawyer. So he came and told me this, and I was like, well, how could they do that? He said because of the situation of it happening in the midst of the case of what's going on now. And I was like, oh, okay. But they say that's crazy how they can now pin that on you where it's a first degree attempt where it should have just stayed as an aggravated, you know. So I don't really know, like, I'm not really too good with how, I just know what I had been informed.
So was he also getting charged for assault because he hit you, or were the police trying to lump everything onto you? Everything to me. Was it because the other people there wouldn't say that he tried to hit you, or they... The car was because they said that fleeing the scene and coming back to a scene to try to harm someone, that technically say you had a pre-intent to do harm to someone. Mm-hmm. So that was what I was informed. But okay, so it was leaving the scene and coming back was the reason that they didn't also charge him with assault from the first interaction. Right. Okay. Which I still don't understand how, but I guess. Yeah, no, it's confusing. And one of the aspects that I wanted to get into you with that I was confused by is that you were locked up for 4 years, but you didn't have a trial right away. So once you got charged with first degree attempted murder, I assume did they set bail for that charge? Did they lock you up immediately? What led up to you spending 4 years in prison without going to trial?
Well, this is the part where I was referring to, where now the justice system tends to fail me as well, where it's no win in the sense of just being trans or just being human in general. Like, I think it's always hidden things behind everything, I'll say. And what I mean by that is that I'm saying, well, going into the police and trying to see that they may see things in the side on both behalves and not look at the situation on one behalf as a joke and one behalf as something serious. It was all the whole joking aspect. And then going from lockup into jail, because I didn't go to prison. I went to jail. I was in Cook County the whole time. And when I was in Cook County the whole time, the process of staying there for 4 years is because what do they call those? Public defenders have a ton of caseload of cases, right? So when they have a ton of caseloads of cases, what tend to happen sometimes is I didn't have a lawyer to pay for. I didn't have a lawyer at that particular moment. I had a pro bono lawyer. I mean, I had a PD, public defender, and at that particular moment, I had Rebecca was my first public defender. I had her for a year. She stuck out with my case for a whole year. And I don't know how if people are aware of how the situation of cases go, is every month your case is being put back into the courtroom. So it was like months after months. And the development takes a month to develop the case, right? So it took her a month just to develop all the evidence and everything. I mean, a year to develop all the evidence and everything, which she was my first public defender. Then after that, maybe within that year time frame, when we sitting there hoping, I'm saying, something to come to some type of common ground for me, I'm saying, like, okay, something finna happen. They switched my public defender to another public defender. So it was like, now this public defender have to catch up on my case because he have a ton of caseloads. You know, it was just from that public defender, I had him for like maybe 6 months. Then from him, I had another public defender. So I felt like, in a sense, what they was trying to do, in a sense, was maybe think that, okay, well, she'll give up, she'll cop out. Because at that particular time, the first public defender that I had, they was trying to give me 10 years at 85%.
10 years and 85%. That's, you have to serve 85% of it, or what does that mean?
Well, I have to serve 85% of 10 years.
Okay. So 8.5 years minimum.
Correct.
Okay. And so the combination of the police treating the case like a joke and then the constant shuffle of public defenders, every time you switch the public defender, the next one would have to play catch up and then figure out everything that was going on in your case. And that kept delaying everything while you were sitting in county jail the whole time. So you'd have one defender, and then they would come off, go into another case, and then another defender, and eventually that process came to an end. Like you had a permanent public defender that stuck with you?
No, actually, how that came to a closing was where this is how it happened. Like, this is how the magic of everything happened. Where I was losing hope at that particular moment, because after having so many different public defenders there to represent you and not really fully representing you the way you will want to be represented, that's the part where I had the point where it was kind of like becoming to be like, I needed some type of hope. I had to kind of like now hope that the vision of what I see my case is being, that I hope I can find someone that can see that as how I see it. And with different public defenders, I didn't get them really in the same matter of trying to help me the way I see a person that's really there for me as you say you are. So at that particular moment, I'm saying I was like literally losing hope from different public defenders, losing hope. And it was a lady when when I was in lockup, I went to Division 9, Supermax. Once my case got upgraded from an assault to a first degree attempt, I had to get moved to a different division. And the division I got moved to was Division 9, which was Supermax. And for those who don't know what Supermax is, that's like when you see high profile cases, like people that like hit the news and it's like it's an impact on the world. Like, oh my God, I was around people like that.
Yeah, like serial killers, stuff like that. Like the type of cases that people make documentaries about.
Big cases.
Like that.
So that was just a moment for me. Like, oh my God, like I didn't do anything. I did something extreme, but to the point where this person was harming me, and like this how I have to end. So it was a moment for me. I was reflecting on everything. So the reflection of that, it was a lady in Division 9, because that being a Supermax division, we needed someone to kind of supervise us, because a lot of things in Cook County wasn't being implemented for trans people, right? So it was a lady by the name of Diana. She was a white lady. She was our counselor. So what she would do is she would come around and check on all the trans girls. So we needed bras, if we need any type of assistance, which is anything, like where like this is one of the things that I had a problem with. Being in prison, being in jail, a lot of things as living a life as a trans woman, it wasn't being implemented for us in there. Meaning like bras, meaning like what else? Certain things that just what trans people would want to buy, like panties, like we don't want boxes, like why we want to walk around. So a lot of things like that wasn't given to us. We weren't able to buy those things on commissary. So, and another thing, like for our appearance, going into the courtroom, they say always come look your best in the courtroom, right? So as being a trans person, I have hair. So I would have to go in the courtroom with a low cut fade, and that's not right. That's not respecting the way I live my life, right? You having me go to...
They would require you to have a shorter haircut?
They wouldn't require this. They wasn't implementing the process of trans women. They wasn't giving us within the policy. It was a policy that was aligned for trans people. So if you identify as trans, you was able to go to the beauty shop. So that was something that, talking to Diana, was implemented for trans women now. Like, so it was like she was making the things that wasn't possible for trans women back in the days now to be able to happen now. Meaning like that's what she was for. So I'm saying all this to get to a point. That's why I'm saying this. So
yeah.
She was making,
so
she was someone who got you the things that you needed as a trans woman. She made sure that you're okay and you were able to get
things like underwear, bras, stuff like that.
Yeah, and like resources, if girls got out of jail and they needed help with like probably housing and, you know, other things. She was just that woman to go to, like, and if it's cell arrangements, you have someone in your cell that you don't identify with wants to be in your cell that maybe will probably say words to you that you feel threatened for your life, that she would get them out the cell with you. She was there to kind of like overwatch us when she knows certain officers in there didn't really respect trans people and wouldn't even implement the policies behind trans rights. So she was there for that. So along with that, she had someone come in with her one day by the name of Shannon Parker. Shannon Parker was doing outreach work. Outreach work, what she was doing was like basically coming in, I guess, inspiring trans girls to have, for whatever reason of being in prison. You have some girls that are going for theft. You have some girls going for prostitution. Some girls going for killing, like myself, almost attempts. You know, but she was there to uplift us and say, hey, whatever you in for, you can make change now. Look at me. You know, so that was the moment of her coming in. It was implemented for us to kind of meet with her every 2 weeks. So meeting with her the first week, this was implemented for Division 9. We all came in the room. It was like maybe 3 trans girls in the room. We all sat there with Shannon Parker, Diane. We all sitting there. And she was like, well, I'm bringing Shannon Parker here just to kind of like, you know, help you guys out. If you guys need other outside resources in your neighborhood, she can help that, you know, help you guys find those resources, you know, like, you know. So I'm like, okay. So I'm happy. I'm like, all right. We got somebody to bring us resources. We could talk to her now. And then she was a trans woman. So it was like that part for me was like impacting. I'm like, wait a minute, I got a trans woman coming through the front door and not through the, you know, double doors. Like it was different. Like she ain't coming in with Chanel, you know, handcuffs on. It was like a moment for me, like, oh my God, like they really allowing this? So I was kind of geeked. So she was like, okay, well, I want to know all of you guys' stories, you know, getting to know y'all as we, you know, start off, you know, meeting every week. And I'm like, okay. So I'm thinking to myself, and I think I informed this, and I tell everybody, this is literally how I was thinking. I'm thinking like, okay, well, I don't mind telling you, but how could you help us? Like, you know, we still gonna be in prison by telling our story. But I'm thinking to myself, okay, I guess I share. So we all shared our story. we went around, it was like 3 of us. We sat around the table and just told our story. And I came to mine, I told my story. I said, me and this young man got into it, and I was outside making my money, trying to, make ends meet for me. And, this is what happened.
Survival work.
Survivor, trying to survive. And she was like, okay. And I told the story, whatever, everything. We wrapped up the conversation, and, it was time for us to go back to our tiers. So as we was getting ready, I'm going to go back to our tiers, she stopped me and said, Eisha, could you come to the side? I want to ask you a question. And I was like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, what's the question? She was like, is it possible I can take your story and put it on my social media? And I was like, mind you, this 2012.
So it's like Facebook, Instagram just starting. It's not super popular yet. Yeah.
This can just let you know how the impact of social media can like really bring change upon anybody. So don't take how we take social media for granted. People need to really understand social media can actually impact people in so many ways, just more than one. And look at mine. But yeah, she took my story, she put it on her social media, and the next following week she came back to me and, and everything was always to the side. Like she didn't never want to kind of like, I make me feel like I was like special than the other girls. So she put me to the side again. She was like, well, I took your story and I shared your story on my social media, and I got like a lot of feedback from people like, is this person real? And I was like, yeah, I'm real. I'm real. So I was getting like a little bit excited because mind you, I had a public defender. I had no one working for me in a good standard for me. I've been in jail already for like maybe 3 years already. So I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Maybe this may be my hope that I've been hoping in my cell every day, like from different public defenders. I'm like, maybe this is my hope that's coming along. Like what I say, it's always a guide in someone. So, okay. So she's like, yeah, a lot of people have been asking me, is your story real? And is it okay if I can share your ID information? And I said, yeah, share it. Yes. I'm getting happy now. Like, yes, share my story. Yes, share it. She
yeah,
like,
you're
okay,
like, yes, please.
Share it. So the next following week, now mind you, that week when she shared my social media ID, and that moment for me, it was a very like impacting moment where when people don't understand, when you hoping for something and an impact situation come where like tons of mails start coming in from people like all around the world. Like, I understand your story. I know what you've been through. I can relate to you. Like, it was a moment for me where I felt like, I don't know, like I get emotional, but I try not to cry about certain things because I'm very strong. I'm a strong-minded person, but like being in prison and just getting letters, mind you, this is the second week when she gave my ID. So I didn't even get to see her the following 2 weeks after that. Mail was coming every day. People writing me like letters saying, oh my God, you're superwoman to me. I'm saying, I understand, Eisha, don't give up. That moment for me, sitting in the cell, it was a life-changing moment. It changed my life. It brought so much of just courage to say, Eisha, don't give up. I'm glad you didn't give up, Eisha. You knew it was somebody out there that can hear your silent cry. And it was just a moment like, I don't know. To this day, it's still a moment where I sometimes can't believe it even really happened. Like standing before you, I wouldn't be before you if that moment really, from her taking my story and like really sharing it with the world of how people understand, like, that's not right for her to have to go to jail. What if it could have been the opposite way around? What if she was laying in the grave? Like, it was a moment for me. It was a touching moment. It really was. It was touching.
Yeah. It seems like prison is such a solitary experience. And I imagine there's a lot of ways that people go crazy and they question themselves, and you're not really sure if you're going to get out or when you're going to get out. And there are things that are constantly changing about your situation. And so to have that outpouring of support sounds like it gave you the strength to not only have faith in the situation, but have some more faith in yourself and believe that you had the power to get through it.
Correct. Because I was giving up, as I stated before. I was literally giving up because it was like, either, Eisha, you keep getting constantly public defenders. Like, it seemed like to me that they want you just to take the time and just, cop out. Like, it was a moment because it was just like, I didn't know what to do. I just felt like, Eisha, no. And then like a little, like somebody in the back of my head said, no, don't take no time. Somebody out there gonna hear you one day. Just don't give up. No, Eisha, don't do it. And this was what I was doing to myself. I had nobody in jail helping me. I had no one doing like helping me with just like just keeping me strong-minded. This was all I had the courage to build up in myself to kind of like not give up. Like this was all for like a moment for me that I reflect back on. Like I was a very strong-minded person. Like you know, it's a moment you reflect on. Like it was a reflective moment for me.
Yeah, and while you were going through this, and while you were receiving the support, what was it like in prison day to day when you weren't meeting with Shannon? Were you housed with men? Were you housed with women? What was the cell situation like? Did you feel safe? What were the things that were going on to you while you were in prison from your perspective? Like, how did it feel at that time?
Well, it was a lot. Like, I can't say, like, I would be on this live with you talking for forever. Like, 4 years in prison, in jail the whole time, Cook County, as they say, the worst county ever. I made the best of it at times. Well, I had certain officers, I'm saying, like, I'm going to say it was good and bads. Like, I'm going to always say good and bads because the bad was where I had to learn from my situations. And the good was what came out of the situation. And I mean by the bad was some of the things. I will give you one situation where being trans and being in Cook County, like I said, a lot of the policy guidelines of how they supposed to go about housing trans women, putting us in certain places where certain guys shouldn't be around us, you know, because it's a lot of raping, you know, they see us as vulnerable victims, you know, like that. I'm saying like a lot of guys prey on us. So a lot of times like that, I had to deal with some of those situations where guys was thrown into my cell. I was in protective custody, but yet and still you can be in protective custody and someone come and sign themselves in, and just because they signing themselves in, they're not as vulnerable as you because you're as being you being a trans woman and taking female hormones weaken your testosterone level to be as strong as them. It's to be as to take on them. It's, like sometimes people fail to realize, I'm saying, when you're taking female hormones, the bones within the weakness of the transition tending to change. Like the features, the bones, the skin, a lot of things tend to change. So you can't actually take on a strong man when you're in a cell. It's impossible sometimes. So a lot of girls go through being raped or, it's a lot of things that take place. But yeah, I have had guys in the cell with me that I had to kind of fight, or I had to kind of not want to go on my cell and had to call a 1010. So a lot of officers that was ready to attack me, and this is another situation that maybe I can kind of like maybe address and jump into a little bit more. Well, yeah, a lot of officers in there was at that particular moment when they would look for you to do something wrong. Like say for instance, like if I had someone in my cell and I didn't want to lock up because I wanted this individual, I wanted to talk to a white shirt and I wanted this person out of my cell, they will call the rally crew, whatever they was called, but the officers that be put on their gloves, they ready to kind of like scruffing you up and like beat you up and like, so that would be their moment to kind of get you and beat you up then. So they preyed on the moments like, okay, go ahead, don't lock up. We cool. We want you not to lock up. I'm gonna beat you up. I'm gonna do this to you. I'm gonna harm whoever know. Like, so them was moments where officers would use that moment to kind of like really get their anger and frustration out on you. So it was a lot of moments where officers that didn't like trans people use that advantage to kind of like, get back at us. But it was one officer that used this advantage to really kind of like now put a case on me. His name was Officer Tedesco. And the situation had occurred where it was a 10-10 fight on the deck. And this is jumping off the situation. I'm going to try to make it brief and quickly because I know this is another situation. But it was an officer, like I said, it was a situation on the deck which was called a 10-10. The 10-10 call is when two inmates are on the deck and they fighting, and officers have to now come in, kind of secure the situation. Attain the situation. Is I'm saying the word correctly? Attain
to contain the situation.
Contain the situation. That's what I was saying. Contain the situation. So as they was coming in to contain the situation, I was in the shower at the moment. So I didn't even know it was a 10-10 going. I just heard it because you can hear everything's echo in jail. So I heard 10-10. So I'm trying to throw my clothes and stuff on, my jumpsuit and stuff on, but I'm seeing all the officers in the bubble area getting ready to come in. So as I throw my clothes, my jumpsuit on, it's a big puddle of water that leaks out of the shower area because it's an open shower. So the officer Officers run into the tier. I get out the shower. I grab my belongings and I jump out because they always tell you when they come in, get on the floor so you won't feel that what they say you won't feel like you won't feel threatened towards them. Is you on the floor? Yeah,
they'll tell you to get on the floor, right. So you're not a threat.
You're not a threat. So I was on the floor at that moment. So it was one officer that, like I said, the officers use certain situations to kind of like now prey on you. So it's an officer by the name of Tedesco hopped on me, like literally hopped on my butt. Like he was like literally on behind me. Like I'm like, wait a minute. Like you shouldn't be on me. He shut the fuck up. You don't say nothing. Shut the fuck up. And like he was pushing my head down, mind you. I'm mentioning it was a puddle of water that leaks out. Mind you, this is dirty water.
Mm-hmm. And it's also hard to breathe, I'm sure, too, because you're literally being pushed into a face.
I'm getting pushed down and this water right here. I'm like, no, you're pushing my face into this nasty ass water. No, you're not going to just treat me any type of way. So he actually like grabbed me by my neck and was just like kept pushing me down. So I was like forcing back, like, no, you can't, nah. And the white shirt looking at him do it, he said, oh, take her out. So he took me out, and I'm like, where am I going? I didn't do nothing. The fight over there. So they took me.
The white shirt is another officer?
He was a white shirt is a lieutenant that's overlooking. He overlooked the officers. So it was like he was joining forces with him, and he told me to take me off the tier. And I was like, for what? He picking with me. He pushing my hand into this dirty water. I just got the shower. Y'all see me. What's the problem? Why did he treat me like this? I felt like I was another situation. I'm in prison being treated a certain type of way where I didn't do anything. So he took me off the tier. And as in Division 9, the way that they can get and attack you and beat you up in a situation like that, where it was a fight going on already on the tier. So they took me on the elevator. Him and another officer took me on the elevator because they was pertaining to the other two men. They took them down already. And they took me down behind as they was going down. So the officers put me on the elevator. The same two officers, one of them the name was Tedesco, and I don't know the other two. One of them was Tedesco, the other one I don't know, because it was two blue shirts and a white shirt in front of me. The white shirt was Campos, Officer Campos. Sergeant Campos. He was a white shirt. And he was in front of me. They put on their gloves, literally while we was in the elevator. They had my hand handcuffed to the back. And they literally beat me up.
In the elevator, they were just beating the shit out of you in the elevator with their gloves on.
I literally thought that I was living a movie. I was like, is this a movie? I had never...
And you were not... You were like...
You weren't a threat.
My hands was in the back. I was cuffed in the back. All of this is... And like I said, all of this is on file. I have a picture of my eye. I had like a cut in my eye. I'm saying, them beating me up. That's why I say I went through so much in prison that the stories, it goes on. Like, that's not only one I went through. So, like I said, I went to Holden. They took me downstairs to Holden. I'm telling them while I was in Holden, they just beat me up. Like, mind you, officers stick together. Like, they don't really care about what you're saying because you're an inmate. We don't care about what you're saying. We don't even believe what you're saying. But all the officers kept asking me, why is she down here, though? What did she do? Why is she down here? The fight was between them. Why is she down here? So it was already something that they started triggering, like, well, something that happened then. Like, why is you down here? I'm like, no, I didn't do anything. My jumpsuit was soaking wet from him pushing me in the water. So it was just a lot but the long story short I'm trying to say is I ended up catching a case from this situation. He pressed charges on me.
Oh, they pressed charges on you after they beat the shit out of you?
Yes.
In the elevator?
Yes.
What were the charges?
An assault to an officer.
Jesus Christ. So they can really do whatever they want when they want to take out their anger because no one's going to check them.
Basically. Well, I was charged. Yeah, I was charged. And the crazy part is, I'm saying, not to go too much into that because that's like another situation with...
Yeah.
But what happened was after I was charged, I ended up having to fight that case. Me and my same lawyer, Dan Corn, fought the case and we won in a bench trial. All the officers was there and I won. So it was crazy that what I had to deal with being in prison was the same officer that pressed charges on me was Officer Tedesco. He was able to come around me every day and antagonize me and say, Eisha, I see that your case growing a lot of publicity with the one you came in here on. He said, but it's okay. If you do get out on that one, you'll go down for mine, because 9 times out of 10, all cases that I put on with, if an officer put a charge on you and while you in prison, while you in jail, that 9 times out of 10, that charge is going to stick. It's going to stick because the officers did it, and they know that usually 9 times out of 10, the officer's charges usually stick with the inmate. So he was constantly antagonizing me every time he had the opportunity, when he was able to come on my tier or see me in the area when I'm walking or going to triage or whatever. Hey, love, hope you look cute when I see you for court. Like, he was constantly picking with me, and I felt like, how is this even possible? Like, how is this officer that have a case with me still able to be around me? Like, I had to even talk to Diana about it. Like, she was like, well, I'm gonna try to get him away from you because that's not right for him to constantly antagonize you. And how do he even know about your case with what's going on with you in prison now? He was knowing, like, this man was really picking with me, like, literally.
Yeah, that's fucked up, because just him physically beating you, and that on its own is fucked up, but then also not being able to fight back, because he's probably just waiting for the moment that you reach for him or hit him, because that's his excuse to do a full beatdown and do the same thing that he did in the elevator. And so it sounds like there are officers that are angry in prison, and they're using people as outlets to get rid of their anger, and it's going unchecked, and you became a target. And I'm sure also, as a Black trans woman, he's counting on that no one's going to really give a shit, so he's going to get away with it. And then it's this cycle of him getting to do whatever he wants to you, and then you're not in a situation where you can do anything back, and then that cycle perpetuates.
Well, yeah, it definitely did, because coming to find out, I'm saying it was in a situation doing background work on him. He was actually he had another case pinned. Well, it had already passed. A Black trans woman had put a lawsuit against him, which she ended up winning from him, like doing the same thing, picking with her, like antagonizing her. It was an assault. So this was something that he constantly do with trans women, like pick with them, use the opportunity while he's in work to, like, antagonize them, like, because that's how I felt. Like, every day I would come outside, and or if I would see him on another tier, because mind you, all the officers have to work with each other, because they are actually holding down the tier for a day, for a couple of hours. So they actually have to kind of go in. So if I'm coming out getting medication, he would be at the door while I'm getting my medication. He would say little small things to me. Well, hey, love. And I'm like, why are you even speaking to me? We have a case with each other. I don't want to speak to you, sir. Like, I was being respectable. So it's like, you can be respectable and understanding to certain things, but people are still going to constantly pick with you when they have some type of vendetta against you, and you can't do nothing about it. Like, who people know, like, me being in prison, I was already dealing with what I was dealing with. Now I'm dealing with another situation on top of this. That's a lot to deal with.
Yeah. So you eventually, you said you won the trial against the officer. How did you eventually get out of prison? Because you're out now. How did those 4 years come to an end in prison?
Well, one case have to go it's one case at a time. So previously, when I caught the other case with Tedesco, the battery on the officer, that case had to be put on hold until I fought my original case. So my original case, what had happened was, my lawyer Dan Coyne had ended up coming to me, I think 2015 or 2016, 2015. I think that was like December of November. He had told me, he was like, Eisha, I'm gonna give you everything to let you know everything now, because he came back and told me, he was like, well, this is what's gonna go on. He's like, I have gotten the opportunity to really figure out what your case is, because that's, well, did I even inform you with how the transpire of Shannon? Did I say that right? I did mention that, right?
Yeah, you left off where Shannon was someone who was speaking with other trans women in prison, and she was getting them supplies and making sure they were safe and things like that.
Okay, so I think I had gotten distracted off the fact where the fact that Shannon is the individual that actually brung the life of my story. So
yeah, she shared it on social media.
Once she done that, a lot of people started reaching out to her. So that's what actually caused someone to do a petition that actually reached like, I think 5,000, 1,000 signature within like a week or two. And then from that, like everything else started to come along. Then I ended up getting a lawyer that took my case for bono. And that was Dan Coyne that came along, and I was introduced to him. 2015, he ended up coming in and saying, "Hey, Eisha, I heard your story, and I'm here to want to help you and get you out." And he did it so exactly what he said. In 2015, he had been fighting my case. I think he took my case on, I can't say exactly when. I think the time frame of when Shannon shared my stories, when the time frame, I think that same year is when he took on my case. And from that year of taking on my case, I'm saying how the conclusion came to an end where he ended up finding out where Dante, which is the individual that I had gotten into it with, his transcripts of, I guess, his medical transcript history, they ended up finding out some things about his history where he challenged that in a sense where, how is it that y'all gonna say that she's the reason his leg been amputated and actually he's the reason? So we used that to kind of like fight. I don't know how he came about, but he ended up getting me a plea deal for a lesser term, and it was time considered served.
Wow. So yeah, the attempted murder got dropped because of the transcripts, and then Dan Coyne, you said, am I saying his name right? Dan Coyne?
Yes, Dan Coyne, yes.
He took your case and got the plea where the time served allowed you to get out in that 4-year period.
Correct. It was actually, I had already had coming around into my 4-year mark. So it was basically, he was just trying to get, okay, well, being as though you coming around to your 4-year mark and I only had your case within almost a year now, he was basically saying, I'm going to try to get you out immediately because I know that in the sense of your case, and saying, I know you're ready to come home. You've been sitting around from different public defenders, so I'm going to try my best to get you out. So he actually ended up getting me out December 15th before Christmas. And that's what he ended up telling me. He was like, I'm going to have you out before Christmas as well. And I was kind of like shocked when I went into the courtroom and they was like, case dismissed. I was like, oh my God, like, are you serious? He was like, yeah, it's time considered served. I was like, oh my God. And I was free.
Yeah, no, that's a hell of a situation to get through. And you're an inspiring figure to many people, and the social media outreach says it on its own, where, you know, even back in 2012 when your story was shared, and I wasn't aware of it until recently when I found it on YouTube, but the fact that people were reaching out back in 2012 when social media wasn't that popular and letters were flooding in, it's obvious that your story was affecting a lot of people. It took a great amount of strength to get through all of the legal and physical and psychological bullshit that you got through, and it's awesome to hear about, in the sense that I'm speaking to you now out of prison and you're able to tell that story, because a lot of people aren't.
Well, I think that's the main point of the situation, where certain stories like this are not actually, like, I guess, told more so, like I'm saying, or a lot of the girls are actually a lot of the trans girls are actually going through situations like this, are not actually here to actually tell the story. So I think the impacting of the story really itself actually speaks volume, because of many girls like myself have been impacted where they're not here to kind of tell a story. So I think that's the main thing for me. And just, I don't know, like, I think just the uplifting part where the younger next generation that come along that can actually be impacted by it and say, well, maybe I'll move differently, in the sense of now hearing a story like this where a trans woman could have actually lost, you know, like, so I think it's just it's something that can always live on, to have some type of momentum to do something for someone else, or however that may be, however they may use it. So that's how I look at it.
So I wanted to end off with some topics and questions that were more pop culture related, and that came up when I was searching about questions that trans people either were answering, or people were popular questions related to trans issues on Reddit. So I wanted to bring some of them up and get your thoughts on it. So the first one is Caitlyn Jenner. When you search Caitlyn Jenner, or when you search trans on Reddit, a lot of Caitlyn Jenner things come up. And so as a trans woman, what comes to mind when you think about Caitlyn Jenner's story? Because she was someone that she is someone that is super popular and also polarizing, where people usually either love or hate her, and she's been in the media as a sort of this rising trans figure. What are your thoughts on the Caitlyn Jenner situation, and what comes to mind when you think about her?
I don't really have any fidelity against Caitlyn. I just feel like, in a sense, where a lot of issues where Caitlyn just don't understand, where you have the privilege to transition yourself and you surround yourself with fame, where a lot of trans people are not surrounded by fame and they don't have those type of resources which you have, which they don't. So I think that what Caitlyn, for my perception of what I think Caitlyn should do more of, is just really do more of the resources, do more out resources of learning more about the dynamic of what trans women are faced to deal with today. Like, because in a sense where the age of where you at now, it's totally different now. Like, so I think, but the thing for me with Caitlyn is just that, to sum everything, because I don't want to speak too much about another individual in a sense. I just feel like, for me, I feel like Caitlyn should do more of just like having more other allies. I'm saying, because at a certain age, and I'm not going to disregard, I'm saying, what Caitlyn do, I'm saying, for the community. I just feel like in certain ways where Caitlyn just have a privilege, white privilege in a sense, like that's for me, that's how I feel, because a lot of things she just don't really speak upon, like a lot of trans women, I'm saying, that we, I don't know, like, I just feel, I don't really be, the controversial part about that for me be, I don't know, like, I can't really say, I commend her for just being who she are and standing up and transitioning, but I just think that the ally part where, want to stand and be the voice for trans people, I think doing more of that and learning all different type of races, I'm saying, like, and not just sticking to your own, I'm saying, I think that's the part for me.
Yeah, she's I didn't really grow up with Caitlyn Jenner because she was in the Olympics before my time. I think I was either not born yet or I was super young when she was actually in the Olympics. But it was kind of crazy, the stardom that she shot to in such a short period of time, and then being from the Kardashian family. It was the first trans person that I remember seeing on magazine covers and being portrayed in the media as like kind of like the head of not necessarily like the head of the trans movement, but like a figure that people were praising for being trans, and she was being put in the spotlight. And yeah, I guess there's also responsibility that comes with that too, where you have the attention and you also want to bring attention to all trans women that may not have the money or the fame or come from, she's from the most powerful media family in the world. The Kardashians are everywhere. So,
but I think in a sense, having that privilege too as well, just because you are surrounded by the most powerful media aspect of it too, it still sometimes is a controversial thing, because then being as though that now people will use that and say, well, just because she's that powerful and using that, it's, oh, well, we don't want to see this. I don't know. I just think for me, I just think that she just brought just her transition to the field more so. That was really all I see. I'm saying, like, and now more so for young, like let me say this. So I was, had a privilege with working with Kimberly and Kai on the documentary series, and protected trans youth is a thing, because I feel like that's what I'm saying in the sense of my story. I feel like people that are now able to, because I'm going to get old. I'm going to, die on, and hopefully my impact of my situation can kind of, my situation can kind of like enlighten the next generation. I'm saying, so I think that leaving that generation next to come something to learn from, to guide them along what they have to be informed to, deal with, that's something that I think that's the main thing. I think Caitlyn don't really speak too much about, and I think that's what I'm trying to like kind of hit at issues. Let's pertain issues and not just highlight, you know, the whole aspect of trans. Like, what about the issues and the impacts of things that we have to go through? Like not being able to get a job. Like for me right now, I'm working on where I'm a part of a bill in Illinois. Well, if you're a felon, you have to wait 10 years to legally get your name changed. And from me getting out of prison, of course, I had a felon. Of course, a felon, because I have a felony in my background. So I have to now live with the name of Eisha Love every day, trying to move forward with my life differently, which I can't because my name is not legally Eisha Love. It's Eisha is the name I go by. So it's like I'm living an alias every day because legally I'm not, you know, able to get my name changed because I am a felon and I have to wait 10 years.
So there's no exception for trans women or trans men that have a crime on their record. It's 10 years for everybody. They can't make an exception if you have a name. If you're changing your name because it doesn't fit your identity as a trans person, they won't make an exception for you at all. They'll say 10 years for everyone, no matter what.
Well, it's a mark where in certain states, well, I know in Illinois, we have the highest where if you're a felon, I can't really say per se everything regarding like if you're a felon, or I just know in certain cases where I'm a felon when I have a first degree attempt. And if you're a felon, if you have a theft, it's different. Like for me being a first degree attempt, I have to wait 10 years for a person that's a felon and they have theft, they can never get their name changed. So it's stipulations to how that goes within it. But I just know for me speaking as a felon, I can't legally get my name changed and I have to wait literally 10 years. So that affects my everyday living. Like, you know, I can't really just like go find a job right now and work at a work field where people won't know the name that I want to be referred to be called by. They have to go by the name that's legally what it says on my ID. And that's not who I live as.
Yeah, I understand that rule because it sounds like they're trying to prevent people who have committed crimes from wiping their entire history behind, but there should be an exception for people who are doing it for the purpose of being trans and changing their name because it doesn't align with the name they were given when they were born. It seems like that would be an obvious thing where they would say, oh yeah, like you're changing your name because you were once a man and now you're a woman, not because you're trying to like fake your identity or anything.
Correct. Or I think that in a sense where policy should always have a 5 to 10 year look mark to revamp. That's what I believe. I think that in life, I'm saying each generation or in a time frame, policy should be overlooked and revamped in some type of format. And I think that by this policy being outdated, I'm saying it needs to be revamped. And that's what we're trying to do now, revamp the policy where in Illinois, because I know in certain other states it's different, where they stipulations is a little bit more different than ours.
Mm-hmm. So something else that came up a lot is hormones. Trans people and also people in general had questions about what taking hormones does to your body. And you mentioned that taking estrogen, you can actually feel it making you weaker and not just changing your body to be more feminine, but you actually felt yourself kind of losing your strength. What were the strongest effects that you remember feeling when you first started taking hormones?
Well, that was one of the side effects that it has on you as taking estrogen, estrogen and spironolactones. But it does lots of things to you, I'm saying, like for me, and I work along with it as well, like, you know, internally, I'm saying, like I do take good care of my skin, and you know, I just think one of the things that I think the difference is appearance. Like my appearance from taking hormones, it kind of softened me up from how I was looking at once upon a time. So hormones does do a softening of just appearance, the skin gesture, like your skin, because sometimes, you know, it can be a little rougher as a man. Then, you know, if you take good care of yourself, it can soften up more, like you feel like a baby, you know, a little bit more. So hormones does a lot. Like I just think that it definitely do an impact on changing numerous of things. I'm saying I can't really say particular, but it definitely did a lot for me. I'm saying just by taking the time frame I did, and today still.
Yeah. So I don't know if you listen or watch Dave Chappelle. Have you seen any of Dave Chappelle's specials recently?
That's actually, I look at The Real, the TV show The Real, every morning. And actually, this has been a big topic. So this morning, before I even did the interview with you, I actually watched it. And when I was watching it, I watched it I watched that first, then I watched The Real, because Real have looks like conversations pertaining certain topics, and this was the topic they was referring to. And yeah, I feel like, are you referring to asking my opinion about how I feel about the Dave Chappelle Show?
Yeah, like, because I was searching around for topics and questions that were related to being trans, and a lot of people mentioned his latest specials because he does make jokes that include transgender people. And for me, I think Dave Chappelle is hilarious. I grew up watching The Chappelle Show. I love his stand-up comedy. And I understand that things can be funnier when they're not directed at you. And I'm not trans, so I don't take it personally. And so people may have different opinions than me. And I was wondering what you think of Dave Chappelle, or maybe comedians in general, making jokes about trans people. Do you find them funny, like more jokes funnier than others? Do you think it's a topic that's off limits? Like, how do you feel about the subject of being transgender in comedy and stand-up comedy?
I don't think, like, watching the David Chappelle series, I don't think in a sense where the comedy aspect of making fun of trans people, in a sense, I think right now you have to understand it's very sensitive to trans people, because at this particular moment, we're trying to basically make more awareness of who we are, in existence in this world more so. So I think the sensitive part come in where a lot of trans people feel that, yeah, it's comedy, but in certain things where you're not specifying in certain things that you're saying that actually is accurate. I think that for me, in the sense of David Chappelle mentioning that he helped the trans person, get to where she at, or mentioning her and things like that, it only, like, he always, the thing that bothers me is that he constantly state that he's transphobia. Like, you can't state something and then say that you're trying to do so. It's like, in a sense, to mention that into the new series, it made me feel like, is this what you're doing to try to cover up the dynamic of what you've been putting out, that you're transphobic and you helping someone, so people to be like, oh, well, he really not, because he helped someone. That was a part for me. Like, it's like, when you've been classified as this, and then now you want to mention this to the world. Well, I helped a trans girl. I actually helped her get on to where she at. That part for me was kind of like, okay, so what, now you looking for someone to have a little bit more remorse and understand that the jokes that you have made in the past, we should lift up off of them a little bit, because you are not that, that part for me was kind of the point where I felt like he's looking for people to kind of have some remorse for him now, because of mentioning that. So, and then you just, like I said before, you have to be very sensitive on topics with trans people, because we are actually trying to make ourselves more visible in this world. Like I just told you, I'm not fully visible at this particular moment, where I'm not living the name that I identify as, and I can't do the things I need to do. I can't work. I can't do the normal things that a normal person can do right now. So when you making these things as jokes and things, well, that's offensive to me, because I'm actually one of those girls that's impacted by that situation. So it does become a little bit sensitive, but it's still, it's humor. So I can laugh in a sense, but I'm like, okay, David Chappelle, you are a major influencer, so you can't say, and that's the thing too, like influencers, that's what we're going back to Caitlyn. When you are influencers, you have to watch the things that you say. Like for me, I try not to speak negative things about trans or say certain things negative, because I've been impacted by dealing with other trans girls, but I'm not going to put the next trans girls down, because I've been impacted by my previous situations. I try not to indulge in that. Like, if that makes sense, if I'm saying.
Yeah, I understand, because when I watch a joke that Dave Chappelle makes about being transgender, to me it's a concept. It's not a personal thing, because I don't actually feel the thing that he's talking about. I've never been through the thing that he's talking about. So I have the idea in my head and I laugh at the concept, and to someone who has actually been through the ordeal that comes with being transgender and transitioning, that personal element can make you feel like you're not being seen because it has a much more personal edge to it. Am I saying that right?
I wouldn't say not being seen. I think that the situation is looked at as being a joking matter, where it's not a joke to me, where I have to go do certain other things where that doesn't pertain me being able to live society normally, and you're cracking a joke behind it where I don't see it as being something that's funny. So you have to be very understanding to certain situations where you're cracking jokes about it. People are actually living these same situations where if someone cracked a serious joke about you and you felt as though it kind of offended you in a way, you would kind of maybe not say too much, but in a sense, in the back of your head, yeah, it was somewhat offensive, I'm saying, but I'm not going to say much. But yeah, anything that's said towards you when you haven't been affected by it, of course it wouldn't affect you. But if a person that's been affected by it, then yeah. That's why I say that, yeah, his comedy special, yeah, it's all jokes. I think that he's an amazing guy. I'm not taking it away from him. I was laughing, but I think in some ways,
it was funny.
I was offended by it. Like, wait a minute, I'm the girl that can't get a job right now that's actually battling with her name not being identical to who she identifies as. So, that kind of rubbed me like, well, and people laughing at that. Well, I'm living that laugh. It's not funny right now. I'm not laughing at that right now. That's something serious for me. So it's just, that's what I mean by you got to watch, I'm saying. And people say, well, trans people are very sensitive. No, we're not sensitive. It's just that sometimes if you was impacted by something and someone said something about you, you will want to say something. That's even family, mother, cousin, auntie, anybody say something about you and if it hits you in an offensive way and you impacted by it, you're going to say something about it. You're not going to hold it and say, well, I think you should have kept that to yourself. People do that all the time on social media. So
yeah, no, yeah, it's like the
domino effect.
Domino effect, and then it's also the back and forth of comedy, because if you're telling a joke, part of the reason why it gets a reaction is because people know it's offensive to someone or one group of people, or some people may take it as offensive. And it's like this dance of taking a topic that many people see as off limits, like maybe transgender or rape or something that just like people hear and they go, oh, you can't joke about that. And comedians that are good will be able to tell jokes about those topics, and that doesn't stop it from also hurting people that may actually be living that situation. So I'm for people being able to joke about whatever they want to joke about, but I also trying to become more understanding to why some people may be offended by a joke that has such ties to its deep trauma or personal experiences that have not been positive in their life. So I'm trying to become more sensitive to it. I definitely do have I enjoy when things are controversial, and like that kind of makes me like, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a good joke because it's getting into this sort of topic now. But I'm also trying to become more sensitive to the fact that, yeah, someone's going to be the butt of this joke and they may feel hurt by it.
Well, yeah, that's any joke. Like I said before, that's anything that you're speaking upon that's very controversial, I'm saying. And I think that's what he used, because the whole concept was about trans and race. Like, to me, I felt like he was trying to reunite both. Like, I'm saying that's the main topic of the world today, race and trans or LGBT. Yeah. So, yeah, you would definitely use those two to actually make ratings for yourself. I'm saying, yeah, but the thing for me too as well, like, you don't go after things where you're looking for ratings. Like, you go after things as a comic. Yeah, I can see the jokes. Like, I take none away from the jokes. It's just that you have to be understanding that when the backlash come, don't feel offended and say, well, it's my fault, or I didn't mean that. Just say, yeah, I meant it, but in a sense where, did I think about others? Yeah, but I said what I said. So you got to live up to what you said, just like I had to live up to what I did. Like, it's in my story. I did what I did, and I have to live up to it.
So you would respect a comic more that knows that the joke was offensive and stands by the joke.
Yes, since now all this record about talking, and I'm gonna say two things I respect, because now it's two things that come out of this. I respect that the comic that comes out and say what he said and know that, yes, I did think about what I said that could have been offensive. Yes, I did. Because that's now owning up to what you know that was offensive, period. Yeah. The second thing that I like about it, I'm saying, but what he did was, as a black man, he calls what? The talk. Because now we can talk about it. We can talk about it. Now we can bring these type of things to the forefront. So I think that it plays both perspectives. Like Dwayne Wade said about the conversation about Boosie mentioned about his daughter. That part opened up the doors for people to understand now. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So I think that that's really the main focus of this new generation, bringing topics that's very controversial to talk about it, to bring more awareness of it. So I think what he did was he opened up awareness for it. But now own up to what you know that now you open awareness of that could be affected and offensive to others such as myself. That's all. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the last thing I wanted to end off on was that this comment at the top of the Ask Trans Reddit. I think it had like 6,000 upvotes or something. And someone wrote this story about feeling like trans was a white thing. So I wanted to read it and see if you had any comments about it, or maybe if it was something that you've experienced. But this person wrote at the top, people see transness as a white thing. One of the biggest things I struggle with as a trans person is being Nigerian American. I've always been proud of my heritage, and I enjoy meeting other people of color, but in a lot of those circles, there's the notion that queerness, especially transgenderism, is a white thing. My parents are pretty transphobic. I'm closeted, but they occasionally like to make fun of it by calling it white people stuff. It's so crushing to look up to trans positivity, and the majority are white/white passing people. A lot of parents of color are okay with trans people, but they, quote, wouldn't let their kid act like that. It just makes me feel so bad existing as I do. And then she said, does anyone here share a similar experience, like as a black trans person? So do you feel like trans is mostly treated as a white issue? Have you felt heard as a black trans woman? What's been your experience with that?
I definitely feel like it's a white experience. Similarity, they use those as both, because the white topic of racism and all that plays the main part as being a trans person or just being indigenous or whatever. But for me, what I learned is, like I just made the statement that I made, that sometimes we have to come to the realization that in the back of our head, when people we feel that are accepting to us, sometimes they're really not. And if you come to the conclusion where you know you're aware of yourself sometimes as a trans woman, for me, as a black trans woman, for me, what I came to grips with is that I know a lot of people are not going to be accepting of me. But I have to be full and accepting of myself and make sure when I walk up in a room that if you're not accepting of me, you're aware of me. So it's a difference where that's what I do. You know, because I can't take away of how your appearance, your perception of me. Because that's never going to leave. It's never. You can say, oh, I love trans people. Y'all are really cool. Like I just had this conversation with my friend in a sense. I was saying like how women say that, oh, and not just women, everybody. They'll say, well, oh, I love trans people. I love this and love that. But in the back of your head, do you see your kids as being this? Would you fully accept the person that you sit back that you love every day would be the same? Like you have to put people in these type of same positions. Like, you know, just because you saying you accepted them, would it be different if it was your kid? Would it be different if it was a man that you love that now is this? Like, it's different when the situation is on another hand, where when you just saying on the outside, well, I like y'all because y'all trans and y'all this and y'all that. But it comes differently when in the back of my head, I think that a lot of them really feel that they're not fully accepting the trans people. They're really not. I just think they just acceptance in the sense where if society say, if I just say I'm cool with them, that's enough. And I think that's for me, it's like I try to like stay to myself, and I'm very like a loner. because of that, because I really sometimes really can't take what people saying as being true. You know, people say, well, oh, I'm accepting to you, but then behind your back, I'm saying to say some things about trans people, like, well, these faggots and this, and I'll be like, wait, why would you say that? I'm saying, like, how you accepting to me and then saying something like that, you know? So it's just like, I don't really take what people say as being true. Like, you can't. You know, like sometimes people just say that just because they're trying to make people pleasers. They're trying to please you by saying it. So I just really just say, you know, just love yourself. If you love yourself enough, people will know that despite what they say to you, they'll know loving yourself, it ain't affecting her. She don't really care because she love herself.
Yeah.
No, that's a good way to look at it, that you're not really okay with the way that someone is or the actions of someone else unless you'd be okay with someone in your family doing it, like your son or your daughter, or
well, we're gonna say
your
the
partner,
man,
something like
we're
that.
gonna say a son, or because it's different when it hit like that. You know, people be understanding to the fact where they have an outside friend that's gay or outside cousin. I mean, outside, I'm gonna say outside friend. But when it hit differently, when you see a lot of people where they see a trans person, well, I was saying in the sense, it's a little bit, it's complicated how I was trying to break my scenario down, but you got the drift of what I was saying. It's different when you have a friend that's that, but then when it's somebody that you love, you tend to go about the way you handle the situation different. You know, in a sense, it's not the same. And the way you think of that trans person as your friend, you're not going to think it the same way, I'm saying. And if you do think of it that way, you're holding it. You're not really expressing it the way you want to express it. Like I say, that's what I think I'm trying to get to. People don't express the way they really feel truly.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, is there a place where people can petition for the name change? I know you said there was a law that's currently in circulation now, but is there a place to direct people for the name change or to sign something where you can they can support you getting your name changed to what you want it to be, which is Eisha Love?
Yes, you can help me and all of the 10 plaintiffs that's on this bill as well by going to the ACLU of Chicago, and it should be a segment for House Bill 2542. You actually can sign, it's a petition out as well. It's a petition that actually you can go on my page, which is Eisha Love, or Google Eisha Love, and you will see my page, and you will see I have a petition I actually constantly put out to get people to sign. Or either that, like I said, you can call the senators and inform them that the House Bill 2542 will actually be vetoed back into the House of October 16th, I think. So, yeah. So we just need the support, really. I'm saying just to kind of get the senators to be aware of, like, this bill is actually impacting trans girls like myself and other trans girls that are actually on this bill as well, and around the world that may have to deal with the same situation where they're not able to get their name changed. So
I'll put the link to that in the podcast notes so people listening can go actually go click on the bill and the petition. Where's the best place for people to follow you? Where can people keep up with everything that you put out and support?
Well, those who love me and just embraced by the situation of just me being this strong-minded person, but I done went through all the struggles and situations that is not yet to come still, because I still got more to come. But those who are still just interested in just like the things of what I'm doing and just trying to bring a change, just follow me on my Instagram page, which is sincerely yours truly. You guys, my last name is Love, so I just ended with like everything I put on Instagram, sincerely yours truly. Eisha Love. So you guys can follow me there, or just like I said, on my page, my Facebook page, which is The Virus Love at the moment, because I can't legally get my name changed and I had to battle with Facebook with them making me change my name back. So that's what you guys have to look me under, as The Virus Love. So, but yeah.
Well, thank you, Eisha, for sharing your story. You're such a strong and inspiring and beautiful person to talk to, and I really appreciate it. So thank you for taking the time to do this.
Well, thank you as well. Now, like I said before, I truly appreciate you just uplifting my story more. Like, I just need just this. I'm saying, like, and like I said, this is not for me. This is for other individuals that may be watching and be like, man, I can't be as strong as her, but maybe the influence of just seeing, look, it don't take much, just and you have to implant it in yourself. So maybe I'm implanting something to you to be like, I got to get like her.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like that now. So I'm sure listeners will too. Thank you so much, Eisha.
Thank you as well.